Have you ever looked at your AWS environment and felt like it's a house that's been renovated a dozen times, but without any blueprint? You know there has to be a better way to organize it all, but man, where do you even begin? Well, today, we're diving into two super powerful tools designed to bring order to that chaos: AWS Control Tower and Terraform. Let's get into it.
It's a classic story, right? You start out with just one or two AWS accounts. It's manageable. But then, before you know it, you're juggling dozens, maybe even hundreds. This account sprawl is a sign of growth, which is awesome, but it can also create some major headaches if you don't get a handle on it early.
You know, managing a single AWS account is kind of like owning a house. You know where everything is, but as you scale up, it's less like owning a house and more like you've suddenly been made the city planner of a boomtown. And without a master plan, you're heading straight for chaos.
And let's be clear, this isn't just about being a little disorganized. We're talking about real, serious problems. Inconsistent security policies leaving you vulnerable, major compliance risks, and just a huge operational burden that drains your team's energy. It's time to bring some structure to this city.
So how do we get from that chaotic sprawl to a well-planned metropolis? Well, you start with a solid blueprint. In the AWS world, we call this a landing zone. Now, it's not a single product you buy. It's a concept. It's a well-architected foundation built on best practices designed to make your cloud environment secure and scalable from day one. Think of it like this. It's a pre-approved move-in ready space for all your dev teams. They get an environment where they can just start building and deploying their apps immediately with the confidence that all the foundational security and infrastructure is already taken care of. Okay, so this landing zone idea sounds great, but how do you actually build one? Well, this is where AWS Control Tower enters the picture. It is a managed service from AWS specifically designed to automate the setup of a secure, compliant, multi-account environment. At the very heart of Control Tower is another service called AWS Organizations. This is the engine that lets you create a really clear, logical hierarchy for all of your different AWS accounts. You've got your top-level organization at the root, and everything else nests neatly underneath it. So, breaking that down, your main AWS organization is like your entire company's umbrella. Under that, you can create these things called organizational units, or OUs. These are perfect for grouping things logically, like by department, maybe a production OU and a sandbox OU. And then inside those OUs, you have the individual AWS accounts for specific projects or teams. It's a beautifully simple way to keep things tidy.
Now here's one of the coolest parts of Control Tower, the concept of guardrails. These are essentially pre-configured rules that govern your entire environment, making sure everything stays secure and compliant. It's kind of like having automated bumpers in your bowling lane. They just keep everyone heading in the right direction.
And these guardrails come in two main flavors. First, you have preventive guardrails. Think of these as the bouncers at a club. They're implemented using something called Service Control Policies, or SCPs, and they set hard limits. For example, an SCP can just flat-out block anyone, even an admin, from spinning up resources in an unapproved region. It just can't happen. Then you have detective guardrails. These are more like your security cameras. They use AWS config to constantly monitor your accounts. They can't stop something from happening, but they will alert you the moment something drifts out of compliance so you can go in and fix it. So, Control Tower sounds pretty slick, right? A few clicks and you've got this secure foundation. But it's not the only game in town. There's another massively popular tool for this job called Terraform. This brings us to the great debate. Do you go with a managed service or do you build it all with code? Let's see what people out in the real world are actually doing. This comment from a Reddit user really nails the core appeal of Control Tower. If you're in a small team or you just need to move fast, the value is huge. It gives you a best practices landing zone right out of the box, saving you an incredible amount of time and effort. But then, on the flip side, you have this perspective. This user points out the biggest advantage of Terraform. It lets you define your entire organization as code. This is a game changer because now you can use standard developer workflows, version control, peer reviews, automated pipelines for your infrastructure. That's something you just don't get with a click-based service like Control Tower, which, critically, doesn't have an API. So let's put them head-to-head. With Control Tower, your setup effort is low. It's a managed service. Terraform? Well, it's high because you're writing custom code. But that trade-off flips when we talk about flexibility. Control Tower is prescriptive, so it's less flexible. Terraform gives you complete control. AWS handles the maintenance for Control Tower. With Terraform, that's on you. It really boils down to this. Control Tower is ideal for teams who want to get started fast and value standardization. Terraform is for teams who need deep customization and live and breathe those GitOps workflows.
But here's the secret that a lot of experienced teams have figured out. You don't actually have to choose. In fact, one of the most popular and powerful strategies is a hybrid approach. You use Control Tower to lay down that initial, secure baseline and to provision new accounts with all the basic guardrails. Then, you use Terraform on top of that to handle all the specific ongoing customizations your applications need. It's truly the best of both worlds.
So how do you decide what your path should be? Control Tower, Terraform, or the hybrid model? Well, there's no single right answer. It completely depends on your team, your culture, and what you're trying to build. To figure it out, just ask yourself a few key questions. First, what are your team's skills? Do you have people who are already pros with infrastructure as code in Terraform? Second, how much customization do you really need? Can you live within the well-defined box that Control Tower provides? And third, think about your speed and scale. How fast do you need to get this stood up, and how complex is your environment going to be?
At the end of the day, the most important thing to take away is this. There is no single best way. Anyone who tells you otherwise is selling something. The right tool is the one that fits your team's skills, your company's culture, and your project's requirements.
So whether you pick Control Tower, Terraform, or a mix of both, the real goal is to get that solid foundation in place. Because once that's handled, you can stop worrying about the plumbing and get back to what really matters, building amazing things. Your foundation is set. So, what are you going to build now?